Alright, /x/ no OC thread, so I'm starting one myself. Be 5 years old. Go on vacations with my dad, his friend and his friend's son. Stay at hotel. Dad has crappy cell phone that I used way too much. Spent about 5 days there, everything good. Be on our way back. Ask dad for phone. Go through gallery because dumb bored kid. Find picture. Picture is all of us sleeping. Show picture to dad. Holy friggin' shit. Tells me to not say a goddamn thing to mom. Yeah, whatever. Fast forward 5 years. Think about it. Shit my pants.
This one is an urban legend me and my friends used to listen when we were little. Old woman has fruit garden. Lives by herself, husband died a couple years back, sons are in another city. Lives beside mountain range. She starts calling the police because aliens come down from the mountain and start eating her fruit. Multiple times, every time the police arrives nothing to be found. Screw it, she's crazy, ignore her. One night, screaming and noises from her backyard. Neighbors get weirded out. Go to her house, go around the house into her garden. There they found the old lady standing. Big stick in hand. Literally trying to kill what is described as a weird combination between a praying mantis the size of a big cat and a rat. Nope.jpg. Everyone gets the hell out, old woman dragged by force. Police called, then again, nothing to be found, but this time there are multiple witnesses. Spend rest of the night in the front yard to see if they catch anything. Old lady doesn't stop saying I told you and laughing.
Hanging out with friend in his house, sleepover. House is in the middle of nowhere, and we are alone because his parents went on a date. Pretty big frigging house too. Start messing around in the kitchen. Hit the blinds from one of the windows a couple of times in a rhythmic way. Haha, that's funny. Blinds get hit back. This time is from the other side. What the hell? Turn every light on, grab crossbow and then open blinds. Nothing there. Needless to say that was a sleepless night.
Alright. Be 5 years old. Had a nightmare. The nightmare isn't relevant. At all. Woke up in the middle of the night. Dad was at his PC. Tell him. Asked me if I was feeling hungry. Say yes. Go downstairs for a sandwich. He starts making sandwiches. There is some kind of table, higher than me. Can't see what's in the other side cause the table. Put my hand in there. Then I swear. A frigging hand appeared from the other side and touched mine. Shit nope fug nope. Rar. Run to my dad. Tell him. He doesn't believe me. Can't go to the frigging kitchen anymore without feeling some kind of disturbance. TFW 15 years has passed since that and still scares me.
Go to bathroom to take a bath. There's something touching my back. I look behind and see nothing. I start touching myself. Hear a voice saying yeah. I stop and look around and a voice says don't stop. I don't want to, but I am afraid of disobeying whatever is talking to me. I keep doing it in fear, but for some reason it feels better than ever. I can feel tits rubbing on my back. I finish and look behind. It was a fat guy with a creepy smile. He disappears. I feel violated right now, bros. Should I game end myself? I don't think I will ever be the same.
Short but true. Wake up in the middle of the night from a dream, where I walked across a building where rich people had orgies, and an asshole giant destroyed my windows and furniture for fun. Gathering motivation to stand up and go to pee. Here outside my window a woman walking across the street talking in the typical distorted demonic voice you hear in movies. Strangely enough I don't get scared and just stare at the ceiling contemplating the remote possibility of the existence of demons, possessed people and paranormal worlds I'll never fully understand.
Be 14 years old. Wake up at 6:50 a.m. facing towards a wall. Have this feeling that someone is looking at me. Look the other way. Shit.png. There is someone standing in the middle of my room and actually looking at me. Look to the wall again. Shit 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 shit. Gathered some courage and got up from bed. Walked towards him. He looked like a man in his 50s, with brown and dirty clothes, and a wide, expressionless face. He was like a peasant from the past. Actually yelled at him, "Who are you?" He looks at me. Puts his left hand on my right shoulder. And tells me. Me. Start feeling a freezing cold on my shoulder that began to expand towards my body. Frigging ran away from my room.
Be young boy. Live in middle of nowhere town. Have girlfriend. Every day, girlfriend comes over. And every night, I accompany her to her house. One night, I notice a big, black dog is following me. Huh. This keeps happening every night. I leave girlfriend in house, black dog follows from a distance. One day, casually tell your grandma about it. She gets kind of agitated. Warns me, it could be a demon. What.jpg? Alright, what can I do? Simple, take a knife, spray it with holy water and stab the thing. Fast forward night. See dog, turn on street and wait behind a wall. As soon as dog appears, I pull the knife out and cut it in the face. Dog screams and oonily scream and runs like hell. Scared, go to house. The next morning girlfriend doesn't come, so go to her house instead. As soon as she opens the door, I notice the newly made scar that sits on her face.
October 30th, late at night, trying to sleep. Remember all these 3 a.m. stories. October 31st starts, still can't sleep. The more close it gets to 3 a.m., the more scared I am. Can't sleep. 2:55 a.m. Hear some messed up laugh out in the street. Hear sounds of high heel shoes. Can't sleep that day.
I asked about this once here but never got an answer, but still curious. My mom told me this story. Hurricane Sandy is currently hitting state. Mom is bed with my stepdad trying to sleep. Power out, dogs are in the room, raining hard, and wind won't let up. Suddenly mom and stepdad notice the ceiling seems to be swirling, black like fog or smoke. Dogs suddenly start going nuts, barking and growling. Stepdad shines flashlight. Black foggy thing seems to just vanish back into the ceiling. It wasn't a leak, roof never got damage. Wasn't smoke since generator was off and it didn't smell. My mom always thought the house was haunted but has never seen anything since that night or really since. What I asked before, was it possible for something like a hurricane to disturb and rile up spirits?
Alright, screw it. Be 14 sleeping. Start waking up. Be laying on my back. Feel a giant mouth bite more than half my back. Wake the hell up. Look at my back, there is nothing.
It was around 5 to 6 years ago. I was hanging out with a small group of friends from another street in my town. They were all neighbors, couple houses away one from another, and they told me that sometimes strange things happen. In the group there were a brother and a sister. And they said that the things happen at the house/garden of an old lady that lives next to them. The lady had maybe 2 to 3 husbands, and the last that she had hanged himself in the attic. So one day I was at their place and we were inside. The brother and the parents were sleeping and only the sister and me were up and talked about ghosts and shit like that. They also told me earlier that sometimes they hear things in the night in their backyard and see something like a figure on the hill behind their house. So, we're talking and suddenly something knocks on the door. It was more like someone threw something really hard into the doors. We were scared as hell. We looked a little bit later outside but nobody was there. It was creepy as shit.
Screw me, this same thing happened to me too, only it was less than a year ago. I was laying on one of our couches reading a book, while my wife was sleeping on the other couch next to me when I felt something pull on my hair. I have shoulder-length hair and our cat likes to play with it, so I assumed it was just the cat again, probably perched on the arm of the couch like he usually does. I didn't turn around to see because it's a normal thing that happens all the time. Instead I just reached back to try to pet him, but instead of touching nice fluffy fur, I grabbed an adult-size hand, with tough wrinkly old skin that also grabbed my hand like a handshake. I freaked the hell out and shot up yelling, turning around just in time to see a few fingertips slipping down behind the couch. I dove forward expecting to find some kind of vagrant that had broken into our apartment, but there was absolutely nothing behind the couch, no cat, no person, nothing. My yelling had woken up my wife, who was now sitting up and cussing me out for scaring her, but she didn't see it. I explained what had happened to her and she got really scared just because she can tell if I'm lying, and it was obvious to her that I was really freaked out and had honestly seen/felt something. She insisted that I call cops to check everything out, since it was possible there was someone hiding in our place somewhere. Our neighborhood has gotten a bit sketchy in the last couple of years. The cops came and searched our place as well as doing a quick search of the building, but of course they didn't find anything, and ended up leaving, probably writing us off as being crazy or something. In the weeks following, there were a few more weird/creepy events, but it seems to have calmed down after a few months. It's really freaking me out that other people have had similar experiences. Since that happened, there have been a few other events. Heavy objects will get thrown across the room, impossible that they just fell by accident, and occasionally there is knocking on our front door. I set up an IR-enabled webcam pointing through the little viewing lens on the door, but every time the knocking starts, there is nothing at the door. And I felt something stroking or pulling at my hair, while I read on that same couch, but that was the only time I saw the hand. We're moving next month, partly because there is a constant ominous feeling in the apartment. The building has changed owners 5 times in the past 3 years, so there's no way to find out if anyone has died in our apartment before we moved in, but I strongly feel that to be the explanation. I'm going to ask some of my neighbors if they've noticed anything odd before we leave. It seems really odd that no one stays very long and no one wants to own this building. It was built before the Great Fire of Chicago, so haunting is pretty likely.
My dad used to tell me this story as a kid and he swears to God it's true. My dad, age 10 or 11. Live in shitty apartment with his siblings and parents. Shared bunk bed with my aunt. One night head to the top of bunk bed where he always slept. Wake up in the middle of the night from bed moving. Realize ceiling is a lot closer than before. Look down. Bed is being lifted by flames that continue to grow. Aunt wakes up and the boy of them are screaming and crying. Grandparents wake up and can't get in the room. Grandpa has to break down door to get in. I can't remember if my grandparents saw what happened or not because it's been so long. Dad still saw shit for a long time.
Be me, about 26. Live with parents because the recession. Skyping it up with my cousin, otherwise home alone. 11 p.m. Winter, so it's been dark for hours. My dog starts whining and walking around. Up the stairs, whine, down the stairs, whine, repeat. He is 16 years old, so this is not easy for him. He never goes up or down the stairs anymore. Start to get freaked out by his behavior. Continues for 10 or 15 minutes. Whining turns to a panicked yelping despite me picking him up, giving him treats, etc. I start to worry he can hear something I can't, like people in the backyard or on the roof. I get my .45 1911 and put the magazine in, but don't put a round in the chamber. I'm not gun crazy or anything. My dog keeps yelping and pacing. It's been 30 minutes. Suddenly there is a loud banging on my front door. Not the doorbell, a banging. Oh shit, the dog was right. What do? I put a round in the chamber. Safety is off. Another pounding. My parents' house is in a cozy suburb, Neighbor houses are like 20 feet away. If I pull the trigger no matter where I point it except down I could hit someone in their house. Decide against straight up shooting through the door. Decide to open the door as they must have known I was here, they'd probably been on the roof. Might not be expecting a goddamn .45 in the face though. Plan to open the door and jump backwards so they can't kick it in on me. Hold pistol close to my body, pointing forward. Dog is still freaking out. Reach out with my left hand. Heart is going a mile a minute and I am sweating. Grab handle, open door, jump back, 2 hands on gun. No one there. WTF? Is this a trap? Do I go out there? I take 1 step forward. This is where 2 of my best friends since childhood and their wives jump out from the darkness around the corner. Surprise! They were coming back from some night skiing and decided to stop by unannounced. Try to hide the handgun I almost frigging shot them with. One friend sees it, laughs, ex-Marine with 2 tours in Iraq, what's the gun for Anon? Oh, I was expecting someone else. My dog was just going senile and it was a coincidence they came. Friend still brings it up now and again, remember the time Anon almost shot us?
Early 90s, upstate NY. Family cookout at grandparents'. Adults are all talking, kids all running around playing. I notice him first. Disheveled, homeless-looking dude stumbles out of the woods behind the house. Walks through the backyard toward the driveway, where everyone is. My mom sees him and tells my dad. Dad, Jesus Christ. Everyone get inside. Get the kids. Adults grab all the kids and get everyone inside. Homeless dude goes up to the picnic table, begins eat food, then with one arm literally throws the entire wood. Picnic table, covered in food and drink, through the air. Everyone watches from inside. Dude turns and looks at everyone through the window with the most evil grin I've ever seen. I still remember. It was pure lunacy. At one point my uncle has had enough and walks toward the door to go beat his ass. Grandpa stops him with a simple, "John. No." Eventually the dude just meandered back into the woods behind the house. I remember all the adults gathered in the kitchen and made the kids stay in the living room. Hear them talking. Hear my mom saying something like, "Where did he come from? Could it be? What should we do?" Now here's what makes no sense about this story. Dad was a cop, a sergeant. He had his gun on him. He could have had the entire police department there in 2 minutes, tops. But he did nothing. He just watched this guy from inside, speechless. Uncle was a professional boxer. Grandpa was a tough-as-nails diesel mechanic, and a bodybuilder. The dude was 6 feet 5 inches, a solid 300 pounds of muscle. The fact that none of them did anything just boggled my mind as a youngling. I remember being so confused and angry at the fact that nobody did anything. Grandpa and uncle have since passed away, but I asked both my parents about it recently, few months ago, and both of them swear they don't remember anything like this ever happening. Yet both my brothers and 2 cousins both remember it clear as day.
I was hunting with my grandfather for my 19th birthday about a year ago, and we both watched a deer slam its head into a rock, until its antlers and skull were shattered. Once its brains were everywhere, it tried to lick them up and looked like it couldn't even use its jaw or tongue right, so it just stood upright like a human, and just walked into the river and died. We left immediately and my granddad was frigging terrified. I haven't been near woods since and he moved to Florida with my grandmother for safety reasons.
B4 or 5, I can't remember. Step-grandfather had died a while ago. We were staying at my grandma's for about a week. Planning to go to Florida to see great-gramps and go to Disney World. Grandma has collection of thimbles. One of them was Goofy Thimble. One night wake up and hear Thimble fall off shelf. Thimble collection was on shelf and was in the wall. No windows open, no wind. Dad comes upstairs and sees thimble shattered on floor. Me and my dad both freaked out, clean up the thimble. Me and my dad aren't religious or very superstitious, so we still are kind of freaked out about this. I've got another short one if anyone's interested.
Got a lot, so bear with me. Possible guardian angel or some shit. 8 years old. It had snowed recently. I had a vivid dream one night about sledding down my hill. I wasn't alone. There was also a redhead girl with freckles and pigtails in a fur coat and jeans. Seems to be having fun with me. Also a QT. Rest of the dream is fairly uneventful. 8/10 dream. Wake up. Confusion. I lived in a small town and knew no one that looked like her. Usually, as a kid, main characters in my dreams were people I knew. FF to high school. Have dreams about sitting in a classroom every so often. Pretty normal for someone that sits in class 6 hours a day. One dream was in a computer lab. Red-headed girl from other dream was there, laughing and talking. I swear there were more. I really wish I had thought to dream journal back then. Now for the big finish. In college. A few months ago. Wake up around 10 a.m. on a weekend. Feel the warmth of another person in the bed with me. Weirdly not startled. Feels nice. Feel it only on my legs, arms and back. Sort of like I'm being spooned. Feel the person's calves intertwined with mine. My hands were already resting on theirs when I woke up. I consciously lift my hand up. Feel the back of their hand to see if it was male or female. Feminine. Run my hand up their arm. Stop and feel their shoulder. The last part happened in the span of a second. I start to turn my head to where their head would be. Simultaneously open my eyes, closed up until this point. Catch a brief glimpse of red hair as my eyes are half opened. As soon as I open them more, gone. The entire experience sort of melted away. Left with a warm feeling. Kinda sad that whatever it was left. If this was a dream, it was way more vivid than any other dream I've experienced. The fact that my body was in the exact same place when I opened my eyes as when they were closed makes it real for me. I definitely felt conscious the whole time.
B13. Roamed around the little town I lived in with my friend. Smoked cigs and did stupid stuff. One night we go to our usual spot, which was a bunch of garages next to a little apartment building. There was a little wall separating the parking lot from just a tiny bit of land which was empty. One night at around 2 a.m. we start climbing off to go over to a grocery store to steal some shit. We see some dude in between some trees just standing there. I tell my friend and he doesn't think much of it. He said it was probably just some homeless dude. We stand there for a good minute just staring at the guy. He doesn't move and his silhouette is just there. He looked to be average height and was in a trench coat. His presence unsettled me, so I was just frozen there staring at him. Me and my friend decide to start walking away to a church. Eventually our walk turns into running and we make it to the church. We turn around to make sure the guy isn't following us and there's nothing. That scared us enough to go home, and that was that we never saw the guy with the same trench coat again. Here's one more. This one could be chalked up to coincidence, but it still makes me feel weird. Be me. Have friend over. Me and him watch The Conjuring. Next day he texts me saying Lorraine Warren died. That was very recent and freaked me the hell out. Second story, not so wholesome as the first. Probably 7 years old. Watched all the cheesy ghost shows on TV. Mind began to wander at night. My room is at the end of a hallway, adjacent to a bathroom. One particular night. Try to go to sleep but can't. Ends up being the wee hours of the morning. See the shadow of someone projected on my door, always open, with the bathroom light on. Pretty normal, someone had to use the bathroom. Footsteps are oddly faint. Shadow doesn't go away. Doesn't sound like mom. See the shadow once every 5 minutes or so, stays for roughly a minute. Odd. Tell myself it's my mom doing something in the bathroom. Mention it to mom in the morning. Says she doesn't remember going to the bathroom much. Now for the big spook. Still around 7 or 8 years old. Trying to go to sleep. My closet door is closed. Probably 5 feet from my bed. Hangers with clothes on them hanging on the closet doorknob. Probably midnight or some shit. Clothes on hangers start swinging back and forth on doorknob. F me. Immediately frozen in bed. Can see them swinging out of the corner of my eye. Blame this on one of my 4 pets. Work up the courage to look at the ground for one of them. See nothing on the ground around the closet. Clothes still swinging at the same speed. Hear no other sounds that I could pinpoint as being one of my pets. Immediately get under the covers. Swinging lasts for at least 5 minutes. Definitely can't sleep now. Shit myself until morning. The first can be chalked up to an overactive mind, the second experience was messed.
Be 6 to 7 years old. Wake up in my room. My house is unusually silent. Peek out my room, apparently my parents left me completely alone in my house for the first time. Feel understandably uneasy. Slowly walk to the kitchen. Nothing weird going on, but I decide to look outside the window. It's dark outside, but the street is illuminated by streetlights. See a dark figure looking up at me. Immediately retract from the window. Look again. There's no one out there. And that's it. I still wonder if I actually saw it.
This happened to me as a kid. Be staying with carer while my mother works night shift. Clock in hallway is ticking really loud through the house, I can't sleep. I walk out into the living room. Look out window into car park below. Man in gray trenchcoat and fedora hat is staring up at me. I think everything rapidly went black after this. I remember telling my mom, but she doesn't remember anymore.
Be me 3 nights ago. Have nightmare about working at Domino's. I am a pizzaiolo, I guess I'm nervous about a career change. Wake up. I feel off. Look around room. Look above myself. Something is there. That something notices me noticing it, and I am suddenly smacked in the head by an invisible hand, causing me to hear a painful rushing sound in my ears as it makes the room around me kind of pulsate as it vanishes. I check time. 3:33 a.m.
Be me. Sleeping. Rar. I have scented candles burning through the night to make room relaxing and smell nice. I wake up. WTF. There is what appears to be the sleeve for my Luftwaffe greatcoat, hanging in my face, despite it being packed away in a box. I am groggy, so it takes a couple of seconds to realize what is going on. I look up the sleeve of the thing in my face, and see it is an invisible figure, dressed in blue-gray woolen robes, reaching out at me from the corner above the foot of my bed. The thing is casting shadows from the candle and everything. I understandably get annoyed at such a rude incursion. Mother Lavere has its hand right in my face. I reach up to move it out of my way, and feel a clammy frog's skin texture. I kind of get a vision of an old man's hands with leathery skin in my mind's eye when I touch this thing. Room jolts. Suddenly I smack my hand really hard against the wall as the physical thing that had been there vanishes. I think it was maybe the same thing, just illuminated by the candlelight, or visible due to me being in a different state of REM sleep before waking, etc. Anyway, that's my most interesting recent story.
My grandmother always tells me stories of her house being haunted growing up, just typical shit being moved or the animals all making weird noises at night. Somewhat believe her since she isn't very big into the whole spiritual thing. She told me a story of when she was staying with her mother a few years ago. In living room drinking tea, about 10 p.m. Hear knocking on the door. No neighbors for miles, so kind of strange. Great-grandmother opens door, says, "Oh, come in, come in." No one walks in. Closes door. Grandmother asks, "What was that?" "Oh, they've knocked every night since your father died, so I let them in." "Who knocks every night?" "Oh, just the spirits." Grandmother is kind of spooked but just shrugs it off as her mother getting old. The place always felt strange but wholesome at the same time.
Visit hotel, business traveling memes. Cutie pie lady at counter gives me the keys to room. Go up like 3 floors, walk through hall. My door is 4th on the left side, see something curious. Door that's at the far end on the right looks corroded and old, chips off the door's front and the handle seemed rusty. Walk up, stare at it, and out of some curiosity stare through the keyhole. The room is empty, spare for a lady that stands at the window in the back, with long black hair in a yellow dress, wearing no shoes and having pale feet. Don't want to disturb her, still feel weirded out. Go to room, sleep, jerk off in the bathroom, prepare to leave the next day. Decide to walk past the room again, knock and prepare myself a question like why is the door damaged or some dumb shit. Felt oddly attracted to the lady even though I had no idea who she was. No answer, peek through hole. See nothing, just red everywhere, as if a red cover was put against the lock. Decide, oh well, too bad. And leave for counter. Give key to Cutie Pie and ask her what's wrong with the room, and if it's being fixed probably. The lady reacts shocked, looks around to see if anyone's near and leans in. A lady hanged herself in that room a long time ago. No one wants to bother with it because people say it's cursed or haunted. I've heard some say that there's a ghost or spirit inside that room that appears as a pale lady with black hair and fully red eyes.
I was half asleep around 10 a.m. when I started to feel strong pain and pressure in my heart region. Automatically I sat up in lotus position and raised my right palm to start to fight the force that was doing this. It is strange how I just sat up in that position, because I never had done any yoga or meditation and wasn't used to sitting like that at all. My heart started to race really fast as I noticed a black hole in the corner of my room which was sucking the energy and the whole room into itself. It turned out that there was my landlord on the other side, in the bathroom. As I tried to fight this entity, my room got darker and looked like the ceiling and walls were being pulled to that black hole. Dogs outside my window, in the backyard, were growling and barking the whole time. I felt weaker and weaker as the high-pitched sound in my head got lower. I tried to fight back, but I was too weak and at some point it really felt like I was going to die. I am not a religious person and it didn't come to my mind to ask for any help at that moment. Right at the most crucial moment when I was about to give up, I noticed a large golden white object hovering above the house. It wasn't perfectly spherical but little bit shaped like a pear. I did not get any sensation or a feeling out of that being. There was only a thin golden ray that came from that being straight into my chest. Right after that moment I was filled with love, joy and energy. It sounded like a choir of angels started to sing. My room was immediately filled with golden light as the walls and the ceiling started to expand outwards. It felt like bliss and ecstasy, like there was a sensation of godly presence. In my head I kept saying to that negative entity not to mess with me and I'm stronger than it. The 2 dogs outside, German shepherds, were whimpering and crying as my landlord went to calm them down. I heard him saying to the dogs, "Don't mind him. He is stupid and doesn't know what he is doing." After that it sounded like he walked off to the distance, had this evil laughter which was slowly fading and banged a gate close. Although the back gate was blocked with a large fridge in front of it. After that I felt exhausted, fell asleep and slept until the next morning. Around 1 week later the same golden being was back, when I was just about to fall asleep. It was hovering in the same place and from it came small glowing orbs that were different in color. The orbs slowly ascended to each of my chakras, freed them from blockages and opened them one at a time, starting from the base. That is when I had a Kundalini awakening, but still no feeling or sensation who or what that being was. Haven't met it since.
It has been many years since I have told anyone about my experience. I normally keep it to myself, as anyone I tell it to thinks I am crazy. I don't blame them either. If someone told me this story, I would think they were a lunatic. Be me. Just got out of high school, wanted to do something fun. I decide that I'll kayak through the Florida Everglades, by myself. My mom hates the idea, my dad thinks I'll be fine. I had been camping, backpacking, and kayaking for about 7 years then, so I was fairly experienced in bushcraft. Ergo, like my dad, I thought I would be fine. Boy was I wrong. As a precaution, my dad gives me my great-grandfather's old groundhog hunting rifle. MFW. My great-grandfather's groundhog rifle is a M1903 Springfield. Regardless, I grab my shit and rush off into the unknown. I decided to kayak around the Thousand Island portion of the Everglades. I pushed off at a small island known as Shologolb, and I made my way into the wild. I was ecstatic. Finally, I get to enjoy my favorite hobby with no one around to bother me. I camp at a small dinky campground known as Mormon Key. Pic related. It was a 10+ mile kayaking trip to get there, plus part of that was just navigated through the mangroves. Needless to say, I was tired as hell. Make camp, cook dinner, watch the sunset, and go to sleep. I wake up to howling in the distance. Sounds like a wolf. Problem is, wolves have been extinct in the Everglades since like 1910. Kinda weirded out, but there is a body of water between me and the howling, so I don't really dwell on it. I wake up, make up a quick breakfast, and continue heading south on my kayak. End up going down the Lossmans River. See red circle in pic. Find a place down the river to camp. Set up camp, eat, and sleep. That would be my last comfortable night of sleep for the rest of the trip, and maybe the rest of my life. Wake up the next day refreshed, and head further down the river. Eventually hit the mainland. See blue circle on pic. I walk about 1.5 miles east before I decide to turn back. That was a mistake. I tripped, fell, hit my head, and knocked myself out. F me. I wake up about 2 hours later. I pick myself up, orient myself, and start heading back towards the kayak. I get to where the kayak was, and it was gone. The rope is still tied to a mangrove, but the middle is chewed through. It finally hits me. The kayak is frigging gone. My tent, most of my food, water, other gear, and, most importantly, my transportation is gone. I decide to get to dry land, as I don't want to be in the mangroves at night. I get to dry land, eat a granola bar, and decide to head northeast in the morning, to try and get help. I fall asleep with my head on my pack and next to a fire. I wake up, only 4 hours later, to the noise of howling. Wolf howling. Once again baffled, seeing as they should be extinct around here, I shine my light into the brush. I see an absolutely gargantuan wolf, bigger than I've ever seen. Think the size of a rhinoceros. I flip the hell out, and add what little dry wood I have to the fire. I spend the night clutching my rifle next to a dying fire. They eventually buzz off, but I don't let down my guard. Around sunrise, I immediately head northeast. I'm tired, hungry, thirsty, and just wanna get help. I'm slowing trudging through knee-high water. I consider ditching the rifle to get rid of weight, but then I remember those wolves. I keep going on and on, mindlessly, checking every 10 or so minutes to make sure I am on course. In the middle of these mangroves is a small dry area. I figure that I could rest here for a short while. I walk into the clearing and I see a structure. It's a pyramid. In the frigging Everglades. Think pic related, but smaller. I am dumbfounded at what a pyramid would be doing this far out here. I didn't think that the local tribes ever got this advanced. I needed to keep moving, but I just found a hidden pyramid in the middle of the Everglades. Archaeologists and historians would kill to find this. I figure I need to stop and at least look at the place. I climb up to the top, and there is a pit. Just a dark pit. Out of the pit I can hear something faint. I get down on all fours so I can hear it better. I realize that there is wailing coming from the pit. Grieful, painful, wailing. I promptly get up and try to get the hell out of there. In a rush, I trip. See a pattern? After tripping, the wailing turns to straight up screaming. It sounds like a frigging banshee. I am convinced that anyone within 10 miles could have heard that shit. It was deafening. I started hurrying back down, when I see those damn dogs. There was a pack of 5 of them, all completely effing huge. I drop my pack, and climb up a cypress tree. I fire all 5 of my rounds into the biggest bastard there. He bleeds out under the tree, while the screaming from the pyramid is just getting louder and louder. The pack drags away the dead dog into the mangroves. I take my opportunity, jump down, and start booking it northeast. I left my pack to save weight, and am going through the mangroves as fast as I possibly can. I even throw aside the rifle, as I have no ammo for it, and it is just dead weight. Eventually, after an hour, I can't hear the screaming anymore. I'm dehydrated as hell and hungry, but I keep moving forward. I find myself on a road, loop road scenic drive, with a bunch of police cars. They hesitate when they see me, because I look like I've been through hell and back. They get me water and a granola bar, and tell me to sit tight for an ambulance. When I ask how they knew to find me, they said some guy on the road called in about hearing incessant shooting a couple hours prior, and they had been searching since. I get to the hospital, and the police interrogate me. I hesitate, and tell them that I got lost, and fired those shots at an alligator. They accept it, and leave me alone. My family comes up in hysterics to see me. I confide in my dad about what actually happened. Naturally, he doesn't believe me, and said that the dehydration must have made me hallucinate it. I go home and keep bringing it up. Eventually he has me admitted to a psychiatrist for delusions and hallucinations. Gee, thanks Dad. I've brought the story up to 2 different people, and both had the same response. I'm never going back to that place again, and I just want to forget about this, but I felt like I needed to tell someone. I don't care if you believe me or not, as no one else does, I just needed to get it out. I don't know what I found out there, and it will probably stay that way. Good night /x/, I'm going to bed.
I don't know why this happened. It could have been decreased blood flow to my eye or something since I was laying on my face. Me, half asleep in living room. Can hear brother playing PS4 in his room. Suddenly start dreaming while half asleep. Everything looks like an exact copy of my living room but made out of static. Swear I can see 2 static figures sitting on the couch in front of me. This is the same view I had in real life. The sound of my bro playing the game gets distorted like TV static and high-pitched noises. Wake up 20 seconds later in the exact same position looking dead at the couch. I don't understand how this happened because I don't think my eyes were ever opened and I never looked directly at the couch in that position until after I awoke.
B8 to 9. House burns down. Local insurance company apparently was stealing money. So poor as shit. Live-in store my mom owned in the storage room, only enough space for a full-size mattress. Always hear drunks passing by closed store because it's in a bad neighborhood. One night I hear one of the usual drunks crying and screaming. Take a peep and barely can see him laying on the ground breathing heavily. Tell mom, she tells me to ignore it. 3 weeks pass and still haven't seen him. Later that night before closing he comes in and starts screaming at me. His eyes look cloudy but he was clearly looking at me. I'm on the verge of shitting myself. Old fart collapses and my dad drags him out while mom calls 911. Now to modern day. I'm 19 and my family has recovered. My mom runs a restaurant and one day I'm closing up for her. I see a man across the street just sitting and drinking who looks like the old drunk. Coincidentally, my mom and her business partner have been seeing shadows in the restaurant at night.
Be me. Sharing the same room with my brother. He is sleeping and I'm just watching TV while laying on the bed. Starting to feel sleepy. Suddenly I heard a loud scream. As if someone were right next to my ear and screamed their lungs out. WTF.jpg. Look to where my brother is. He is still as a log, breathing calmly.
I've posted this once long ago, like around 2012, but hey, let's go for another round. I heard this from my boss, who is the head of security at my workplace. I'm just a mere audio technician. Winter, 1999 at my hometown. Boss is finishing his day and doing last patrol in the building. It's around 2200 hours. 10 p.m. for you special kind of Anons. Outside is so cold that you could believe that even hell might freeze at any moment. Bunch of old hags have crowded this small so-called cold hall between lobby and outer doors. Hometown is a small place at the shore of Bothnian Bay, so it gets really cold here sometimes. What in the tarnation? Move it, you hags, T-boss. Hags reply that there is something out there. You gotta be frigging kidding. Boss sighs and squeezes through the hags to investigate. You gotta be frigging kidding indeed. Boss told me that his freshly lit cigarette just fell off from his lips as he stared outside. There was something indeed outside. Something, and it was staring this confused bunch through the thick glass doors. At this point I asked my boss what was it, and shivers started to run through my spine. He replied that he didn't know. Size of a large dog. He emphasized multiple times that it had body of a seal. It moved on 4 legs, although the front legs were somewhat odd and lacked a proper paws. It had a face of a seal with really short snout. Almost humane face somehow, with human-looking eyes. It was covered in shaggy but short hair. At this point one of ex-workers, dude was from Estonia, stopped the story and called it bullshit. Boss gave a very stern look to him. Estonian got almost scared from the look and boss continued. This creature kept circling around the front of the doors and it gave looks to everyone. It looked sad. It was cold and windy, minus 32 degrees Celsius. It wanted inside where it was warm. Boss crouched on its level and looked it straight to its eyes through glass. Creature came really close and stared back. It reached its front legs against the glass. Paws started to open closely and presented a small fingers. Boss kept looking the creature into its eyes and slowly rose up while maintaining the eye contact with it. Slowly the creature backed off from the glass doors. Boss told that you could tell from the face of that creature that it was sad, disappointed, afraid as hell and really anxious. Creature turned away and slowly started to jog towards the parking lot on 4 legs. Middle of parking lot it stopped and gave a one last look back towards the warm sanctuary. Boss stopped for a few seconds and had that 1,000-yard stare for a moment. Creature rose up on its hind legs. It started to run. Like a human. It disappeared into the dark Arctic night. Boss, who is quite old guy now, tells that sight might have been too much for him. He tells that nightmares about that creature haunt him sometimes. Creature have been sighted few times after that, but then it disappeared. Boss tells that he hopes it froze to death. No matter what is your view of the world, there is no place for such freak of nature as that thing in this world. I'll pardon my English and wish my story wasn't that bad to read.
I think you'll like this one. Be me, age 12. Living with parents. Obviously WTF. Stray dog gets into our yard one day. We decide we adopt him. Dog was good. Always wagging tail and overexcited. Some odd shit starts happening around the house. Glasses and cups keep falling onto the floors. Toilet bowl breaks into two. I wake up in the middle of the night with all my bedding in the hallway. Mom freaks out. Admits that she keeps seeing something dark in the room. I decide screw it, I'm a man, I'll go check it out. I witness a man hanging from the ceiling. I literally shit myself and swallow my tongue. Screw it, we're moving out. Looking for dog we've adopted. Nowhere to be found. Ask neighbors about dog. Nobody knows what the hell we are talking about. Old lady across the street says the dog we adopted was actually dead with his owner who killed himself in that same house. She shows us a picture of the man and dog. Exact same effing dog. We moved to North Korea.
Dream I had a while ago. Anyone know if Shologolb/Shologolb is an entity in some mythos? Pronounced Shologolb. Be with mom traveling on road in car. She sees buildings she hasn't seen in a while, remembers it's where something big was discovered in the 50s, remembers we ate there once. Go to building, eat in outside seating, pizza was okay. She goes inside to say hi to her friend Alejandrino, follow after hesitating. I follow feeling bad because I was in a tank top and shorts, people were very well dressed and a few fancy offices, very opulent, for like executives with people inside working. Talk to him for a bit inside a break room/kitchen. He gives me a little yellow book I forgot here many years ago and some green fruit. You saved it all these years? Yes. What the hell, shouldn't this fruit be rotted by now? Alejandrino pulls out another piece of fruit that looks like it's spoiled and puts it on the counter but doesn't say anything and ignores it. I just take a look at it. Go to leave, realize I forgot the book. Walk inside to get it. Find book inside kitchen-like room where we talked to Alejandrino. See my mom sitting in a conference room through the glass in the door taking notes on a slideshow about Shologolb or Shologolb. Temple of Shologolb? What the hell, I left her outside. Run into Alejandrino. Wait, wasn't he in the conference room I just walked past? Explain I left my book and show it to him. Look back in conference room, mom isn't there. Get bad feeling, get vision of/imagine my dog whimpering really loudly and wanting to get out, pulling me as I hold him by the collar. Leave. Find mom outside, realize she waited for me outside the entire time. Then what did I see in the conference room? Dream merges into another dream where a really old lady that's bent out of shape because of age is using a throwing stick to throw a ball to her dog for exercise in a grassy area with a few big trees.
Have to share it here. Maybe someone got similar experience. English is not my native language, so I'm using Google Translate. That happened in a remote village away from any cities. I walked in the evening, around 10 p.m., near the bridge over a small river. There was nobody except me, neither adults nor children. That place is near from abandoned garden and river shores are covered with bushes and trees. I heard a howl suddenly. Or a scream like a woman's scream. Or woman's song. Can't explain it properly. I didn't pay attention to it, or decided to show courage and went further. The howl did not stop. Then I saw a white figure, resembling a woman on the opposite side of the river. Wrapped in a white shroud, or veil, reaching to the hips. Bare feet, it had legs of a young woman. And with the skull instead of face, I still could remember that teeth, empty eye orbits. The figure walked from left to right, from my side of vision, not noticing me. I stood for a while, looking at the figure, and then I ran home. I never heard stories banshees before that day. And I never believed to this after I discovered them further. Always thought it belongs to Ireland or South American countries. But now when I rethink about it, the scream, white shroud, womanish looks. It resembles figure of archetypical banshee. Except nobody died in my family that year. Pick somehow related.
Not so creepy now, but was creepy when it first happened. This was about 10 or 11 months ago, before me and my current girlfriend were dating officially. Me 18 years old. I had just gotten to my GFS house. She used to live there with her grandparents. Grandparents are away in Canada for a few months. We are talking in their bedroom when my GF drops her phone on the floor in front of me. She bends down to pick it up. As I am looking in front of me where she was standing, behind her I see an old man standing there smiling at me. I look down at her and she stands back up with her phone. When I look behind her for the old man, he is gone. I am freaking the hell out. JPG. Wait a minute, WTF? That old man looked like her grandpa from the pics I saw of him. But I thought he was alive. So I ask her, "Did you see him?" She asks me, "See who?" She freezes and then says to me, "You saw him, didn't you?" By this point I am losing my shit. "Who?" I yell at her, now scared and agitated. She tells me that the man I saw was her grandfather, who died in the house 4 months prior of a heart attack. I will give more background and another story if anybody is interested.
7 or 8 years old, cannot remember. Suffering a crazy fever. Can't sleep, hallucinating. See plastic bags littered all over my room. Green glow coming from underneath my bed. Try to calm down by thinking of the Powerpuff Girls. Plastic bags begin flying all over room. Suddenly it starts raining green blobs from my ceiling. Every noise is way frigging loud, like right in your ear loud. I feel sticky, like covered in slime. My teeth fall out. My nose actually starts to bleed. It was an hour of hell and all my senses were being completely overwhelmed. Felt really good the next day and played Castlevania.
Have a dream. It's the monkey's wedding. Making the wedding cake for the monkeys. Don't know how to say happy wedding in monkey speak. Look in dictionary. Oak 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 oak. Go to write this on cake. Cake is like 50 layers high and I can't reach it anymore. What does it mean?
8 years old. Share a room with 2 other siblings because poor. Sleep on top bunk. Leave window open during summer because room gets too hot and stuffy. Wake up randomly one night. See this weird thing floating through window. Upper half looks like a black tiger with gray strips. Lower half looks like a ghost or genie tail. It floats in circles around room. Suddenly starts flying towards me. Cover self with blanket. I can feel it pressing into blanket and trying to get in. Too afraid to scream because screaming might piss it off. Eventually the tiger thing stops. Too afraid to peek out from under blanket to check if it's gone. Fall asleep. Wake up next morning, nobody believes me. That was the only time I saw that thing. Any idea what it could have been?
So this story is a bit heavy, so apologies. It's also only sort of /x/. Be a skinny, sheltered 11-year-old. Live in rural Ireland. Have childminder, friend of parents. He likes kids. He also likes dolls. Brings this one particular gollywog doll over all the time. Usually, he would take me into the roof space and blindfold me. Up there was insulated as all hell, and it's where he'd do the knife and burn stuff. Then he'd leave me for a bit, and eventually come back up to bring me back downstairs. In my bedroom, he'd do the more intimate stuff. He'd always set the gollywog doll on the windowsill, facing me. Then he'd leave me in my room, and leave the doll too. I was taught to not leave the room where he'd do even worse things. I usually just stayed on my bed and stared at the doll. If you've never seen a gollywog, their eyes are always wide white circles with little pupils. One day it fell over onto the floor on its front. When he came back in and saw it, he freaked out. The beating was much worse and he kept telling me how I should never block the doll's view. A few similar instances over the next year lead me to fanatically remain in the doll's gaze. One night he is drunk and fell asleep early. It was a Thursday, which was usually when he'd only spend about an hour with me after he finished watching TV. He never came into the room. I drifted off, had a horrible nightmare about the doll being life-size and standing over my bed. Woke up freaked out. Bedroom door open. Doll lying outside. Closed door. Hear him shout Lucy and sprint upstairs. Appears at the end of my hall. Despite my conditioning, I instinctively slam my door shut out of sheer terror. Look down. Doll at my feet, my door shuts inwards, I dragged it by accident. Freak out and hide under bed. He kicks the door but doesn't come in for some reason. Spends what felt like an eternity outside chanting about how Lucy is going to take my eyes. He went home the next morning and gave me all the usual warnings about tattling, not that my parents would care. He left the doll for some reason, which he never does. I set it on my windowsill and made sure it was facing me, because I didn't want to break his rules. The next morning I woke up face to face with it. I can assume that my mother arrived home drunk and thought I had a new dolly or something, so she put it up in bed with me because she always thought that was cute. I never saw the minder again. He left for England the following week and wound up in prison for assaulting kids over there. I binned the doll and thought no more about it. Always been curious, though.
Alright guys, I've never told anyone about this story because an out-of-body experience is one of those things that is so profound it is difficult to put into words. It's kind of like a DMT trip, it's something you have to experience yourself in order to fully appreciate it. Plus all of my normie friends and family would probably write me off as a nut if I told them about it. Be me. Very aspirational and idealistic as a teenager, always knew I was destined for greatness. Moved to a big city in hopes of getting my dream job, didn't exactly work out the way I planned it. As a result, fall into a deep depression, suicidal, working a dead-end wage cuck job just to barely make ends meet. Have to rationalize getting up out of bed in the morning, no motivation or desire to improve my situation, a shell of my former self. Try all kinds of pharmaceutical drugs and natural remedies for depression. Nothing works, and I'm stuck at the proverbial rock bottom, struggling to pay rent and about to be evicted from my apartment. Have to brainstorm ideas to make money but can't ever think straight or maintain my train of thought. Read online about the benefits of meditation. Say screw it, I've got nothing to lose by doing it and my entire life is barely dangling from a loose thread. Start meditating on a regular basis, do all sorts of Wim Hof tear breathing exercises to hack my mind and become a demigod. Enlighten.jpg. Sometimes during my meditation sessions, when I've finally managed to clear my mind of all mental baggage and quiet my thoughts, I will hear sounds of wind chimes or what sounds like a rusty gate being opened. Get scared the first few times and stop. Soon come to find out these sounds are an indication that I am about to enter the spirit realm. Start experiencing OBE, first time is scary as hell, can't control my movements, my spirit just floats up like a balloon and bounces all over the ceiling. Physical sensations exactly the same even though my spirit has left my physical body except I feel weightless. Remote view myself from the ceiling. Surreal as shit looking at myself from this perspective, I can see myself but it's like it's someone else's body because the real me, my astral body, is wedged in the corner of the ceiling, looking down at my terrestrial form. Shit is too much to handle and I'm freaking out because I don't know how to get back to my body. Try and move myself but I don't have control over my own movements, make barely any progress. I would liken this feeling to trying to swim when you don't know how, while at the same time you're being tossed around by an invisible current. Current eases up a bit and I'm able to just kind of float around more freely, finally starting to get the hang of movement. Notice several shadow-like entities in my room surrounding my body. Some are more human-like and some are amorphous blobs of black mass. Terrified but also worried that they are going to harm my body, attempt to communicate with these creatures and say something along the lines of hey, that's my body, leave it alone. Although I didn't come out that way. Communication in the spirit realm works through telepathy, so you don't actually hear the words audibly, but you can still hear it mentally, although much more fuzzy and indistinct, like listening to someone speak in a dream. You still understand the essence of what is being conveyed to you by another being, you just hear it in your own voice. Think I got my message across to these beings because all at once they turn and look at me in unison. Their gaze pierces my soul literally, and I feel inundated with very intense negative energy. Beings tell me I shouldn't be here. Bitch, this is my house. Beings start swarming around me and attacking me. Can't feel pain, but it feels similar to being stabbed or shot in a dream.
This happened yesterday, I swear. 3:30 a.m. Be investigating Satanism and Sumerian deities and shit. Already feeling uneasy, dog frigging wakes up out of nowhere. Need to go to the living room to make sure the dog sleeps again. Old house, so everything is dark as hell. Dog finally asleep. Go through the hall to the bathroom to take a piss, not turning the lights on but using the lantern on the phone. Get out of the bathroom into the hall and feel something covering me. Nibba WTF. Dash to my frigging room and close the door. Feel as if something is lifted from me. Turn on some relaxing music and sleep. I swear it felt like a frigging dark presence or some shit. I felt like going frozen and my energy sucked out from me.
Wake up. Look at window. Notice handprint that's larger than mine. I live alone.
Not too interesting, but I'll tell anyways. Be me a few nights ago. Trying to sleep at 3-something am. Put a song to doze off. Roll around in bed until I find a comfortable spot. So everything's normal until buzzing starts to fill my ears. My whole body starts to vibrate. I describe it as feeling needles in her skin. Try to move my arm, can't. Figure out that I'm just really sleepy and I'm not really moving my arm. Pretty chill until I feel that I'm being lifted off. It's not like someone picked me up, it felt more like being levitated. Also gotta mention that during this whole situation I could hear the song I put on earlier. What.jpg. Try to call for anyone but my voice doesn't come out, only my mouth moves. Stick my tongue out and try to cough, basically doing anything I can to get my voice out. Finally whisper something. Feelings of vibration and buzzing disappear. Gasp for air. Pretty weird. I told my mom about it and she said it was sleep paralysis, but I don't really know. I was awake the whole time.
Be me. Taking shower. Start to fap. Suddenly feel something touch my penis. Nothing there. No one else in the house but me. Feel aroused and let it go on. It finishes me off. Do this every time I want to fap. I posted this before and got some good responses. It hasn't changed. I've never seen the entity. I'm wondering what to do next. I did get some advice before but I forgot and have just gone back to letting it fap me.
Be me. Home alone. Decide to go to the local shops for some snacks. It's a 5-minute walk, but it's nice outside, dark but clear and crisp. Get halfway and see something sneak behind a car. Probably a cat, I suppose. Happens a few times. Seeing this thing out of the corner of my eye, sneak behind cars. Go shop, get my shit and leave. There's a man standing outside the shop with a clown mask on. It looks freaky, likes he melted it in places. The mouth droops down. Don't know what to do or say, just nod at him and walk off. He looks at me but then immediately looks down and pretends he's kicking a stone. As I get halfway home the same things happens. Keep seeing something sneak behind cars. Get to my front gate and run inside. No more sightings, but I heard laughing about an hour later. It sounded far away though, but it was a messed up evil laugh.
Happened to me a few years ago in my college days. Head to buddy's house to pick him up for a party. Weird shit happens at his place all the time. Usually high when it goes down, so we chalk it up to being paranoid. Bud has a big window in his attic facing the front of house. Stone sober and waiting on him and cousin to come outside. Looking up at window thinking how crazy it would be, it turned on. Bud comes outside and said cousin is using bathroom. Looking at him for maybe 2 minutes talking, then look forward. Attic light is turned on. Kinda freaked and ask him if there is a switch downstairs. Says no and tell him it wasn't on when I got there. He is used to it and said don't worry about it. Go to party and leave house empty. When I dropped them off, light was turned off. I have a couple more, but that was the last time I saw anything happen over there. I can explain why place was probably haunted in next post. Backstory. When my bud and roommates moved into the house, they found a few family photos and pictures with writing in a foreign language from the previous owners. Some Islamic family. The guys hung up the pictures and put pics of the kids on the fridge as a joke. Named them Rajit/Ahmed or some shit. Never looked into if any of them died there, but they must have pissed off some spirit living there. Anywho. My first sighting. Head to his place to get stoned, and play some zombies on COD VOV. Get zonked and play for a few hours, just me and him there. Head to kitchen to get some snacks and drinks. Kitchen and living room aren't walled off from each other, so can see TV and hear menu playing faintly. Just chatting when from the opposite corner of the TV we hear some kids start yelling in a different language. Standing there frozen, then look at buddy and we both start dying laughing from our shocked faces. Ignore it and go back to playing. Later that night I am sleeping alone in the living room. Sounds like someone is walking from the hall to the living room. Call out buddy's name. Nothing. Look in corner where yelling came from earlier. See black humanoid figure crouched in corner. Hop the hell up and turn on lamp. Nobody there. Sleep with light on. Next morning buddy asked if I was walking around the hall back lot last night. Told him no and freaked both of us out. Didn't go to his place much after that and didn't see anything else until attic incident. I can only imagine all the shit that happened to him.
Be me. At the fair in town. Go on the gravity machine. One mother lover did this. He leans back too far and RIPPEN through that canvas ceiling above him. I guess it fling him about a block away before he landed in somebody's yard. They still use the same machine, but there's a huge duct tapped patch over one of those triangles in the ceiling.
Bit of a Mendoza effect. Be me. Work at a job. Early on I brought weed every day just in case. One day I decide not to bring. Start to smell weed at work. Ask anyone if they smell that. Female coworker says it was her. Neat. Fast forward a couple months. One coworker asks about a parked car. Turns out another coworker just got their license in the car. Fast forward 2 years. Overhear the female co-worker regale how she smoked weed for the first time the day prior. Don't think anything of it. Couple days later go out to eat with some other coworkers, hitched a ride with one of them. The coworker that had the new car hitched a ride as well. Think nothing of it. Later on eating, IDS/license talk comes up. Someone asked the guy who had the new car if he had his license yet. He said no. Initially think nothing of it. Get home, the confusion hits me. Chalk it up to misremembering or lack of context while secretly believing I've been molested by Mandela. Again.
Remembered another weird experience. This one could not be explained as a dream. I was in high school, English class. Teacher shows a picture and asks us how we would describe it. I immediately get a weird feeling. She already did this. Exactly this. I turn to my friend and ask, didn't we already do this? He says no. But I knew what would happen next. A schoolmate behind me is going to give an answer. So I turn around to look at him, and sure enough, he starts talking about the picture. I was in shock. It felt like I had perfect precognition, for what felt like several minutes, but was probably shorter in reality. But it had a strong impact on me. The explanation where information is reaching different parts of the brain out of sync could not explain this déjà vu. Never happened again. The few other experiences were weird sparks appearing in mid-air above a table inside a house for a moment, and some sleep paralysis a few years back. Also, as a kid I had recurring nightmares, where I was running in a maze from some invisible horror. But because of the repetition, eventually I realized it was a dream as it was happening, and told myself I don't have to run anymore, and just sat down. This nightmare stopped after that, and it wasn't until years later that I first heard of lucid dreaming, realizing I already did it as a kid.
This happens to me frequently. At some points it gets so bad that I can see a whole array of possible futures that whittle away to the one that I'm gonna experience. It is for a very brief moment, but feels like minutes and that my sense of time is distorted. I also feel a strange pressure wave in my head. Not quite a headache, but a pressurized discomfort. I've had lucid dreams since I was a child, as well as night terrors and regular sleep paralysis all my life. I chalked it up to epilepsy or something, but I got tested because I thought I was having seizures at one point, when I would sort of phase out of time for a second, but tests were negative. Dunno what causes it all. Should add that bizarre shit sometimes happens to me or near me. And I've experienced a few unexplained things, although nothing particularly extreme or conclusively A or spoop.
I have got one story that is particularly spoopsy to recall though. Be me, Bong/Kiwi fag dating a Russian girl. Fly to Ukraine to stay with her mom for a couple of weeks in her renovated apartments in Odessa. Everything was lovely, like 42-degree summer days, beautiful girls and really friendly locals, since I can speak some Russian, but look decidedly non-Slav. One night be lying in bed, half asleep but unable to go balls deep in the snooze, cause of how toasty it was, when I feel someone tuck me into the sheets. I laugh and shove them off, thinking it is the missus being a dingus. Happens again. And again. Etc. Right, you cheeky little shit, I'm gonna get you. Sit up and look. Nobody there. GF asleep on the other side of the bed, facing away. Lol what.jpg. Goddamn domovoy, I ain't cold. Go back to slumbering. Finally dream and have this bizarre one where I am in a big opulent hall. Spooky bull skull-headed man is offering me all sorts of neat stuff in order to stay with him, to which I am fairly confused but not really tempted. The things get lewder and lewder, like a pair of clones of my girlfriend feeling me up and doing naughty things to each other. Nah mate, one is enough of a hassle. His offerings get more insistent, and the things get weirder to the point that he is offering me to snuggle a kid. At this point I want out. I've completely realized that I'm dreaming and try to wake up. Spooky guy drops all pretense and straight up tells me that I can't wake up, and that he is gonna hurt my girlfriend. I start screaming etc. Trying to scream loud enough that I can force my sleeping body to make a sound and wake GF, the usual affair when I have sleep paralysis, which I've struggled with on and off all my life. GF finally wakes me. She is drenched in sweat and shivering. Jabbering shit about being afraid. Room is freezing frigging cold to the point that you could see our breath. Forgot to mention that while I was trapped in the dream I felt a supremely malevolent force in there with me. And like I've said, I'm no stranger to night terror/SP etc. But this literally felt like a whole separate entity than a manifestation of my own. Anyway. GF is really scared and tells me what happened from her perspective. Apparently something was pulling her hair, and she thought it was me. She rolled over and said she saw smoke coming out of my mouth. That's what she described it as. Apparently I began shuddering really fast, like vibrating not convulsing, and was moaning like a wounded animal. One long low groan that ended up as a scream. Obviously I was spooked and she was spooked and we didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Asked her mom the next day and she casually tells us that she recently had to get a priest to bless that room cause something evil inhabits it on occasion. I noticed there are lines of salt in the doorways that I'd obviously not noticed before, but that it had been kicked through when we had walked in and out of the room. Didn't actually do anything with the salt, like fix it or anything, and we stayed there with no problems afterwards, but apparently my GF's mom does occasionally tell her about spooky shit that happens in there.
Got a story I remember from when I was young and a local urban legend. My story? Be about 6 or 7-ish. Share a room with my older brother. We have bunk beds, him on top, me on bottom. Really like sleeping on top bunk. Sometimes my brother would be made by our parents to share the top bunk for a night after I'd pestered my mom and dad about it. Sleeping tops and tails in the top bunk with my brother, he's at the side with a ladder blocking any way down from the bed. During the night I wake up and look over the edge of the bed and look out of the window. A dull white light is floating in the back garden, not casting light bright enough to lighten anything up though. Light floats up to window and passes through the glass entering the room. Slowly morphs into humanoid form, no distinguishing features, but I always remember it as male, and faces straight ahead of itself parallel to the bed. It then slowly turns and looks up at me and reaches out both arms as if to carry me. Don't feel scared and climb out of bed into its arms and let it hold me. It places me on its shoulders like it's giving me a piggyback. It just lets me ride its shoulders for a short while, like 10 seconds. It suddenly disappears and I float to the ground, like I was under lower gravity. I still hit the ground with a bit of force, but not enough to hurt or leave a bruise. Suddenly feel very scared and climb into my bottom bunk and hide under the blankets until I fall asleep. Wake up the next morning in the bottom bunk. I remember my brother saying he didn't notice me climb past him to the ladder and that I must have climbed down the side of the bunk bed, but I was short when I was younger, wouldn't have had the reach to safely climb down without hurting myself and have never sleepwalked. It didn't feel like a dream either. So maybe ghost or alien?
Local urban legend. Don't think a year is ever mentioned in this story, but it's an old one and is said to have taken place around the 1800s. Olden times in town in Scotland with a ruined castle near a lake. 3 guys are drinking in a bar and want to play a game of cards. Decide they really want to play a game that needs 4 players. They go to the local ruined castle, under the archway of the main entrance. There's a local legend that ties into this, that if you say 50 different names for the devil under this archway, he will appear. They say 50 names. The devil appears. The men ask him if he want to play cards with them and he agrees to. They go to one of the men's house by the lock and play well into the night, drinking more as they do. The devil wins every hand. The men keep drinking and offer the devil drinks as well. The devil gets drunk. Eventually the devil loses a hand and goes into a drunken rage at losing at cards to these men. He picks up the table they were playing cards on and throws it out the window into the lock and storms out. That's the legend, pretty lackluster, no souls at stake or death and torment involved, but the strange thing was, years later, in the 50s I think, the lock was being dredged to have work done on it, and some people actually found a big old table from around the 1800s at the bottom of the water.
So I got the chance to visit my old high school buddy, Danny. Shortly after I graduated college. I was going to stay a few days with him and his new wife, Carolyn. So I packed a few days worth of clothes and drive to Shenandoah Valley in VA. I get there and it's hot as a mother lover and just as humid. We say our hellos. Introduces me to Carolyn. And we head inside to eat dinner. Carolyn seems nice. Somewhat reserved but curious about me and my friendship with Danny as kids. She lets me and Danny do most of the talking, but asks some good questions to steer along the conversation. Lots of smiles she was. After dinner, she and Danny cleaned up and I got to spend some time getting acquainted with their dog. Truman. He's small, shook all the time, and never shut the hell up. One of those yippy dogs that thinks it's bigger than everything else around it. He didn't bite though, so I didn't really mind. Once the table was clear, Carolyn leashed up Truman and took him out for a walk. Danny and I moved to the living room and caught up over the last few years. He had popped open a beer and was really enjoying the AC. As was I. We somewhat lost track of time and Danny had noticed that it had grown dark out and that Carolyn was usually back by now. He didn't seem too concerned, as sometimes she took Truman out the long way around the neighborhood. It's a small one and close the edge of the state park where there are a lot of hiking paths that lead off. Some circle around and back to the street. So it's a good way to get a nice walk in. We keep talking and I realize that nearly an hour has passed since she left. Danny has kept looking, eyeing the time on his phone, and he finally picks it up to text her. Even on the long walks. She's not usually out this long. Just as he hits send, the front door opens. Truman shoots through the door. He didn't make a damn sound as he sulked straight under the couch and didn't come out. I can't see out the door from where I'm sitting, but I caught a slight whiff of something foul. I can't really describe it, but it was strong enough to leave the taste of copper in my mouth. The smell went away just as quick as it had come. And slowly Carolyn steps into the house. She was slow and shuffling. There was a slight hunch to her, like she was worn out. And damn did she look it. Her knees had a slight gait to them as she walked in, leaving the door open behind her. After a few paces, she stopped, still holding the leash and not turning to face either of us. Danny shot up and after closing the door, went up to Carolyn, asking if everything was fine. He slowly turned her to face him, as she looked real woozy, like she was about to fall over. Her mouth worked open and shut a few times, like she was trying to find the right thing to say. But nothing was coming out. Finally, she was able to wheeze out, "Fine," though it sounded anything but. Danny felt her forehead, then mumbled something about getting her some water and aspirin and left for the kitchen. It took me a moment for the creeping feelings to settle on me. It wasn't the smell or the awkward shuffling that did it. When I think back on it, I believe it was when I finally noticed that ever since she stepped through that damn door, she didn't once blink. Being all gentlemanly, I asked Carolyn if she wanted to sit down and offered to take the leash. I was a bit nervous, but not enough to still feel helpful. As I reached down to, gently, take the leash from her, I realized something else. It could have been the half a beer I had, or the fact that I had just finished driving 8 hours to get here that day. But I could swear that her right arm was slightly longer than her left. By slightly, I mean by at least a few inches. It could have been the way she was slightly hunched over. Or maybe her left arm was bent in such a way that I didn't notice. But the entire proportion just seemed off. Still not taking the tingling hint to get the hell out of there, I asked her if she did anything to hurt her arm. She slowly turned her head to regard me. "Arm?" she repeated, then twisted her head down to regard it, like just now noticing it was there. I shit you not when I say that her arm spasmed as she eyed it. Then, after a few cracks and pops, it seemed to shrink down to the right size. She then turned back to me for a moment, then shuffled past me into the hallway bathroom, the door closing behind her. It was at this point that I noped right the hell into the kitchen, where Danny was just coming out. I grabbed him by the arm and pulled him back into the kitchen. I told him that I think something was very wrong with Carolyn, and explained what I just saw. He stood quiet for a few moments listening to me, his eyes looking behind me into the living room. He finally said, "I'll go check on her. She should be fine though." He looked like he was trying to convince himself more than me. He went and knocked on the bathroom door before entering. The door was closed behind him and, for a few minutes, I could only hear his muffled voice. I was still creeped the hell out, but stood my ground, waiting to see if I needed to shift into full fight or flight mode. Not long after, the door opened and Danny stepped out with Carolyn not far behind him. He smiled at me and said, "It looks like she just got overwhelmed by the heat. I'm going to go ahead and take her up to bed. I'll be back down in a minute." I then looked to Carolyn, who was holding the water bottle that Danny had brought her. It was half gone, so it seemed to click with me then that she could have been dehydrated. But, Jesus, that arm. I can't just unsee that shit. He helped her upstairs, and as they were climbing, I thought I could hear Carolyn rasp out, "Be back." I wanted to nope right back into my car and drive off, but that would instantly turn me into Mr. Shitty Friend. And social pressure finally won over instinctual fear. Frustrated, I sat down on the recliner and eyed Truman, still huddled under the couch. He hadn't made a single noise since getting home, and he looked scared shitless. I gently patted my knee to call him out, and he refused to budge. Well, screw him. I tried. It was dark and quiet, and I didn't realize that I had calmed down enough to doze off. It took a really frigging weird sound from upstairs to wake me. It was quiet and muffled, but low enough to rumble the seat slightly. It was a repeated sound, and the only thing I can compare it to was a giant cat hawking a hairball. I'm not sure why I was stupid enough to do this. Probably that sense of duty among friends. But I got my ass out of that chair and slowly made my way upstairs. The guttural hawking noise didn't stop, and it was definitely coming from Danny and Carolyn's room. That foul stench was back, and pretty damned potent. The combo of the smell and the noise was almost enough to empty my own guts. I reached the door, which was, of course, closed, and I was getting closer and closer to flipping the hell out as I neared it. Why am I doing this? What the hell are you doing? Anon? Get the hell out, I thought to myself. But no, I didn't. Not for a few more minutes. Anyway, I knocked on the door, hoping they were just doing some kind of kinky stuff I didn't want to picture. The retching sound continued. I stood there looking like an awkward dumbass for a minute before knocking again. This time asking, "Is everything alright in there?" More hawking and retching. The damn noise wasn't letting up. I steeled myself in case my friend was in some real trouble. I wanted to know what to describe to the cops when I decided to finally call them. I reached for the doorknob and twisted it open. What I saw was all in the span of a few seconds, before I registered enough to decide to nope straight the hell out of the house and dive away. It looked like Carolyn. Almost. The top half of her was really wide, and her naked, sagging breasts inflated and deflated like respiratory masks. Not sure why my eyes caught sight of her breasts first, probably because I'm a guy? Hell if I know. What should have caught my attention first were the two monstrosities poking out of her shoulder blades. Like an extra set of arms or some shit. Only somewhat bony and jointed. Like the limbs of a flesh-colored insect. They arched over her and back down onto the bed in front of her. I then noticed her mouth. It was open wide. Far wider than what it should have been. Something was emerging from it. Like a dark and wet sack of something. And her entire body was convulsing as the thing slid further out of her mouth. It was hanging over what I finally noticed was Danny. Her body was so wide that I at first didn't see him underneath her. Danny was quite dead. Or unconscious with a shitton of blood loss. Red was everywhere. The bed. The walls. The floor. It was especially all over Carolyn, though I doubt much, if any, was hers. Without stopping whatever the hell ritual she was doing over her husband. She looked up. This was when I noped down the stairs. Grabbed the keys off the counter. Said screw it to the bag of clothes I left upstairs. And drove the hell away. I'd like to say that I called the police right then. I didn't. My God. I didn't. I drove for 4 hours constantly checking my rear view until I couldn't see straight and then stopped at the next motel. Bolted the doors and slept with all the lights on. In the morning I called the authorities and placed an anonymous tip to have them check Danny's address. It was after a week since returning home that I had Googled their names. A small article appeared on the local news site that stated that he and Carolyn were missing from their residence. No sign of forced entry or any blood or struggle. The only puzzle was that their cars were both left parked in the garage. I can still hear that retching. Feel the vibration of it in my chest. It makes me glad that I never gave Danny my new address.